Hare Krishna, dear devotees, my humble obeisances to you all, glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you all for joining His Holiness Candramauli Swami Maharaj's daily class. Today we are going to continue with the Srimad Bhagavatam series of first canto, 13th chapter, verse number 8. Hare Krishna Maharaj, my humble obeisances to you, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for giving your association to all of us today. You can please take over, Maharaj. Hare Krishna. Maharaj, you're on mute.
My obeisances to all of the devotees. Go by Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yudhishthira Uvacha. Apismaratayo Yusmat. Aksachaya Sameditam. Vipaganam Visavya. There. Mochitam Yad Samadvikaha. Maharaj Yudhishthira said, my uncle, do you remember how you always protected us along with our mother from all sorts of calamity? Your partiality, like the wings of a bird, saved us from the poisoning and arson. Due to Pandava's death at an early age, his minor children and widow were the object of special care by the elderly members of the family, especially Bhishma Deva and Mahatma Vidura. Vidura was more or less partial to the Pandavas due to their political position, while Dhritarashtra was equally careful for the minor children of Maharaj Pandava. He is one of the intriguing parties who wanted to wash away the descendants of Pandu and replace them by raising his own sons to become the rulers of the kingdom. Mahatma Vidura could follow this intrigue of Dhritarashtra and company, and therefore, even though he was a faithful servitor of his older brother Dhritarashtra, he didn't like his political ambition for the sake of his own sons. He was therefore careful about the protection of the Pandavas and their widowed mother. Thus, he was, so to speak, partial to the Pandavas, preferring them to the sons of Dhritarashtra, although both of them were equally affectionate in his ordinary eyes. He was equally affectionate to both the camps of nephews in the sense that he always chastised Yodhana for his intriguing policy against his cousins. He always criticized his elder brother for his policy of encouragement in his sons, and at the same time was always alert in giving special protection to the Pandavas. All of these different activities of Vidura was within the palace politics made him well known as partial to the Pandavas. Maharaj Yudhishthira has referred to the past history of Vidura before his going away from his home for a prolonged pilgrim journey. Maharaj Yudhishthira reminded him that he was equally kind and partial to his grown-up nephews, even after the battle of Kurukshetra, a great family disaster. Before the battle of Kurukshetra, Dhritarashtra's policy was peaceful annihilation of his nephews, and therefore he ordered Purochana to build a house of lac at Varnanavata, and when the building was finished, Dhritarashtra desired that his brother's family live there for some time. When the Pandavas were going there in the presence of all the members of the royal family, Vidura actually gave instructions to the Pandavas about the future plan of Dhritarashtra. This was specifically described in the Mahabharata Adiparva. He indirectly hinted, even a weapon not made of steel or any other material elements can be more than sharp enough to kill an enemy, and he who knows this is never killed. That is to say, he hinted that the party of the Pandavas were being sent to Varanavata to be killed, and thus he warned Yudhisthira to be very careful in their new residential palace. He also gave indications of fire and said that fire cannot extinguish the soul but can annihilate the material body. But one who protects the soul can live. Kunti could not follow such indirect conversations between Maharaj Yudhisthira and Vidura, and thus she inquired from her son about the purport of the conversation. Yudhisthira replied that from the talks of Vidura, it was understood that there was a hint of fire in the house where they were proceeding. Later on, Vidura came in disguise to the Pandavas and informed them that the housekeeper was going to set fire to the house on the 14th night of the waning moon. There was an intrigue of Dhritarashtra that the Pandavas might die altogether with their mother. And by his warning, the Pandavas escaped through the tunnel underneath so that they could escape. And there was unknown to Dhritarashtra, so much so that after setting the fire, the Kauravas were so certain of the death of the Pandavas that Dhritarashtra performed the last rites of death with great cheerfulness. And during the morning period, all the members of the palace became overwhelmed with lamentation. But Vidura did not become so because of his knowledge that the Pandavas were alive somewhere. There are many instances of calamities, and in each of them, Vidura gave protection to the Pandavas on one hand, and at the other time, he tried to restrain his brother Dhritarashtra from such intriguing policies. Therefore, he was always partial to the Pandavas, just as the bird protects its eggs by its wing. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Staphistam Yena Bhutto Swayam Rupa Kadam Mayam Dadapi Swam Padantikam Maho Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shivakti Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namaya Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachadine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Pasyatya Sutarni Vanshikopa Tyati Parasindhu Evacha Vitaram Pavanabhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So yeah, Maharaj Yudhisthira is remembering after seeing Vidura, welcoming him so nicely, how he made such great efforts in a very intelligent way to protect the Pandavas against Dhritarashtra's plans. Dhritarashtra committed so many offenses against the Pandavas. And although he raised them as his own children when they were just, very young when Pandu died, now he's trying to kill them. This Dhritarashtra is just really offensive. And but Vidura still has affection for his brother, his older brother. And at the same time as he's protecting the Pandavas, he's trying to restrain Dhritarashtra, along with Yarna, from making plots to destroy them. But they're not listening, and therefore they were all destroyed. You might conjecture and say that if Dhritarashtra, or at least if Duryodhana had listened to Vidura, then he would and his brothers would still be living, and they would also have a piece of the kingdom to rule. But because they were greedy and avaricious, they lost everything. When greed overtakes a person's mind, well, then one loses all good qualities. Greed is a very polluting quality that pollutes the mind and the heart so badly that people will do anything. Just like today, we have our greedy politicians who want more and more control and power throughout the world. And so they'll start wars and kill innocent men just to fulfill their greedy ambitions. So this greed, one of the six anarthas that afflict the mind of the living entity. But when greed becomes so out of hand, it becomes just, it destroys all good qualities. Just like you see people who are into gambling, trying to get something for nothing using various types of games and other means to get money, horse races and gamblings, so many things. The effects are so debilitating, both on the people that they play upon, and at the same time, they become just despicable people. I remember personally when we used to do our Sankirtan, and we would do fundraising, and we would go to horse races. And people would be coming, driving in their cars, can't wait to get to the horse race so they could put their money on some horse, thinking that maybe they will win something. And it becomes so debilitating that I've seen personally how people's minds, they become so anxious, feel their greedy desires that they don't care about anything. There's one report that one lady, she went into a gambling casino and she left her young little child in the car. And she was planning just to be there for a short time and then come back. But she got so absorbed in the gambling that she stayed there for hours and hours and hours. And when she came back, the little child had died in the car, being neglected by the mother. So these are just a few of the unlimited. And then, of course, the whole world is somewhat greedy for more power, more control, more material amenities. And because of that, the whole world is really in a mess, you might say, to use a very ordinary terminology. That people are so greedy. Therefore, it says in the Bhagavatam, it says in the Upanishads, Ishavasham idam sarvam, yat kinchat yagam jagat, tena japtena bhunajitaha, magridaha kisakashisvidhanam. Everything owned and controlled is under the care of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And one may take their quota in order to live. And if they live according to their designed quota or designated quota, they can live for hundreds of years, as the following verse indicates. But we even see devotees become greedy for more material things. They want nicer cars, nicer computers, nicer watches, nicer. And even we see that we spend a lot of time just upping our material arrangements, which may seem like we need all of this stuff. But when it comes right down to it, if all of this was taken away, you could still live. You could still have everything you need to live, but in a more simplified way. And Krishna will do that as the world becomes more and more greedy and people exploit each other and exploit and material energy too. You'll see that too. People are raping the material energy for all kinds of materials to sell in stores that people don't even need. The stores are stocked up with all of these things and made from the earth's production. And, it's just junk that has no value in people's lives, but people are infatuated by this because they think, and this is the underlying principle, they think that by getting more, I'll be happy. But the more they get, the less happy they get, and the more they want. It's like money too. If you start making money, it works on you in such a way as you just want more, even though you don't need it. It becomes a fetish. It becomes an addiction. You got to have more money, even though you don't need it, because it's coming and you have a way to bring it in. You just keep bringing it in. And you're thinking, oh, this is nice. And you don't even know how to use it. Sometimes you just put it in the bank, it stays there, and then when you die, somebody else gets it. And so this greed is such a debilitating characteristic that it destroys all good qualities of the living entity. So one has to learn to be satisfied by whatever the Lord gives according to one's own position. Therefore, it says in the Niti Shastras, it's not the direct Shastras, but these are statements made by great personalities that are supportive of our devotional service, that one should be satisfied with whatever comes by way of the natural arrangement. And they mention three things. One should be satisfied with food, money, and wife. In other words, people are never satisfied with anything because material things cannot give you satisfaction. You may get some satisfaction initially when you achieve it, but after some time you don't feel satisfied and you want something more, or so you want something different. Just the way it is. Of course, the devotees, when they perform devotional service, they're getting that happiness that comes by way of devotional service. And so they don't look to material things for satisfaction, although they may have material things. They use them for, their livelihood, but they live in a very simplified way, at least theoretically. But we see even devotees somehow or other fail to understand that what we need is all that really matters in life, and not what we simply want out of some infatuation. And we get experiences that we go for things that we don't really need, that we think we need, we get it, and it doesn't give you any satisfaction. Sometimes it was just like there was one very powerful dictator in Africa, the head of one country. And he was, liked by many people, but then there was a revolution by his enemies to overthrow him. And they were successful, and they overthrew him. And then they were going through his palace, his personal, and they came across his wife's wardrobe. And she had 3,000 pairs of shoes. Think about that one. 3,000 pairs of shoes. There's not even enough days in the year to use one pair of shoe one day a year. That's like it'll take you about 9 years to use each pair. So you can see how ridiculous people are. This desire to have more material things is a disease. It's actually a disease. Sometimes people give me things I don't need, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do with all this? And immediately I start thinking about who I can give it away to. So, people, we get things and we don't need them. We try to give them away, give them in charity. And there's one story where I heard this one from one guru elevated. There's one very respectable sannyasi in our movement. And this is before he actually joined the movement. He came from a very rich family, quite rich. His father was a very prominent person in society, and so they had more than they needed. So one day, and he was describing that the family would come together on Sunday, the whole family, and they would all sit together for the Sunday dinner. Usually they were doing different things at different times throughout the week, but Sunday was the time where they all come together for dinner. So they were sitting at the dinner table, and his sister, who was an older sister, she was in a miserable state. She was really miserable. And then it was inquired why. She said, oh, I have nothing to wear. I have to go to this party and I don't have anything to wear for this party. Now, it was understood that in her closet, it was full of clothes. As he describes his own experience, he said, my sister's closet was jammed with all kinds of varieties of clothes. And now she's thinking, I don't have anything to wear for this party. I need something else. And then this devotee, at that time he wasn't a devotee, but he understood, yes, material life is just ridiculous. This incident really inspired him to give up material life. And he mentions it, that he said after that, he just started to look towards spiritual life for the answers of life, and then eventually came to Krishna consciousness. So, yeah, this greed is so debilitating that even people have more than they need, they're still not happy and want more. And even if they get more, they're never happy. Dhritarashtra, I mean, he had 100 sons. He had the most chaste wife in the history of women in the Vedic culture. She was so chaste. She's glorified in that way. In order to follow her husband, she very voluntarily accepted blindness, not to be in a better position than her husband. She covered her eyes with a cloth. And she was known as a great cook, very affectionate, very caring, and very chaste and faithful to her husband, the mother of everybody in the palace, Gandhari. Everyone loved her. And he had a wife, such as that. And 100 sons. And Krishna told them, he said, you guys can have the kingdom, but give some part of the kingdom to the Pandavas so they can rule. They're Kshatriyas. They can't be Brahmins. They can't be Vaishyas. They're Kshatriyas. You got to give them something to rule. And then Dhritarashtra's son, Duryodhana, said, they can't have even one suchara, as Prabhupada says, suchara, 1 point of a pin worth of land. And then there was no other recourse but to fight for the rights of the kingdom. So we see that people who are greedy, you know, they can't see their best interest nor the interest of others. They're simply thinking more is better. More will make me happy. I gotta have this. I gotta be in that position. So, but a devotee, they're satisfied because they know whatever they have is an arrangement of God. And what if they need anything more? Krishna will supply it. And if he doesn't supply it, that means they didn't need it. The devotee is satisfied. And satisfaction is the principle of happiness, because if you're not satisfied, you can't be happy. So one has to be satisfied by the process of devotional service, which is the principle of satisfaction, because it connects us with Krishna, who is the source of all happiness and satisfaction. And the devotee learns, yeah, if I need something, Krishna will give it. And if he doesn't arrange for it, I'm not going to worry about it. I don't have to go out and run around and make a lot of big plans to get more things in my life. I'm wasting my time doing that. I could be chanting Hare Krishna. I could be associating with devotees. I could be making programs to spread Krishna consciousness. Why waste time chasing after things I really don't need, but I think I need? And we were talking about this continuously, how whatever's on the market today is 95% of the things are extras, and we call them luxuries. And 5% are either basic needs, such as food, clothing, medical facilities, care, education, housing. All of these are necessities, obviously. But people, they have these, at least to a certain degree, and then they want better in all of these areas, and at the same time, they want so many more things. And then they waste so much time, and then time is just catching up with them, and pretty soon they get old, and then they lament that they wasted their time chasing after things. Why did they use their time for Krishna consciousness? So this greed is so bad. It's it's a quality that destroys the living entity from the top to the bottom. One has to learn to be satisfied. Make a little endeavor for things that are necessary, but not big plans or big programs to increase one's material arrangements, because it simply becomes a deterrent away from Krishna consciousness and a big burden upon the living entity. And if one actually starts to exhibit qualities of greediness, nobody likes that person. Nobody likes a greedy person. Even though they are also greedy, they don't like other greedy persons. This is how debilitating this greed is. The greedy persons don't like other greedy persons because they interfere with their own greed. Now this is the way greed quality is probably used. And it's very prominent in today's world now. People want more and more and more. And that's all they think of. They think, by getting more, I'll be happy. By getting more, I'll be successful. By getting more, I'll solve all my problems. And Prabhupada tells the story of Lomasa Sadhu. He was a sadhu. His name was Lomasa Rishi. And he had performed so many austerities, and he had gained a benediction that he would live one lifetime for every hair. Oh, he would live, what was it? He would live, let's see how it's understood. For every hair on his body, he would live a lifetime of Brahma for every hair on his body. Otherwise, he had such a long duration of life that it was even past Lord Brahma. And so, but he had nothing. He was simply living on the banks of the river and doing his bhajan, worshiping the Lord. And, whatever things people would bring him, he would accept. So his followers, he had a small group of followers, they said, Guru Maharaj, you're living on the banks of the river. You don't have any cottage or anything, no shelter. Let us build you something so you can live in it. And his response was, yeah, it's very nice, but don't bother because I'm not going to be here that long. He was thinking, and even though he had such a long duration of life, he was thinking, I'm not going to be here that long. So why make all of these arrangements? So this is actual intelligence when one understands that even the longest duration of life is short compared to eternal time. In fact, it's just a flash. So we live in a very short period of time, especially in Kali Yuga. It's one of the principles that gets destroyed by the effects of this age. The people's durations of life is reduced because of Kali Yuga. And still people are running around wasting time trying to get so many things that they could be using their time for their ultimate benefit, and that is to worship the Lord and ultimately prepare themselves to go back to the spiritual world. So don't waste time. This greed is simply an illusion that makes one think that, yes, I'll be happy if I can get this. And you see people who, they have all of these agencies now. People are greedy for alcohol, and then they become addicted. And they have Alcoholics Anonymous. They have greedy for drugs. They have another agency called Addicts Anonymous. There's people who are greedy for food. And then they have this program called Overeaters Anonymous. They join this program to help reduce their eating because they just can't stop eating. And there's another one, Sex Addicts Anonymous. They're just chasing after sex all the time. And then so they become what we say, deranged or, sick because of that. And then they to get over that, they join this organization. So this is Kali Yuga. More and more and more. And then our political leaders, they always want more. They're more power, more control, more facilities and like that. And therefore they create wars and send people into useless situations just to satisfy the greed of the politicians. So this greed is, and you can see here, Dhritarashtra was so greedy. And his son, and he simply protected his greedy sons. He was so greedy that the children that he was dear to him, now he's trying to kill them because he thinks that they are, in the way of his own son's, best interest. So, and Vidura, he just kept trying to awaken and now only after he had lost everything, he lost his position, he lost his family, he lost everything. He was living in the house of the Pandavas, taking their remnants. Only then was he able to hear when Vidura came back, simply to save his brother. You see how Vidura was very, very compassionate. He was always trying to save his brother, although maybe everybody else would have gave up on him because he could see how greedy he was. But still, Vidura kept trying, and then at the end, he was able to free him from all of his attachments And then he went into the forest and performed austerities. And this was all due to Vidura's compassion towards his brother. And of course, how he saved the Pandavas here from poison cake, from arson, and from many of the other attempts that Dhritarashtra and the Kurus tried to destroy the Pandavas. So pretty much you might say he's the hero of the Mahabharata here, is Vidura. Okay, so, all right, Krishna.
Krishna, Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you so much for the class. And you explained it so nicely. You might be surprised what am I doing here, but this was supposed to be my turn for hosting. So this is why I'm here. Apologies for the delay. Thank you for the explaining the greed mainly from the Drashtra point of view and the Kauravas. And also you explained give the example of the lady with 3,000 sandals. I could never imagine someone can have. And also a sage who was satisfied, having the long life, but living life with satisfaction. So thank you so much. This is very important especially for the grastas to learn that we should learn to be satisfied, as especially being devotees. Thank you, Maharaj. So devotees, if you have any questions, comments, realizations, please unmute and ask, or you can type into the chat and I can read it for you. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Yes, Scarlett Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, and thank you very much for the class today. In my understanding, Dhritarashtra in previous life was a king, very mean king, and then Dhritarashtra, and he had killed the birds, burning them, and so on, and that's why he was blind. This time around, as a Dhritarashtra, even then he was not so kind. He was, as you say, greedy, and he wants everything. It seems like everything for his sons, but one might think when his son died, why should he wants to be alive? But still, he wants to continue live and have good living and let the Pandavas children take care of him. So he didn't change. He didn't care that the children would die. So he was greedy to stay and to take advantage of others. But what I don't understand, I got to also hear that he got liberation. What was the piety he did that he got liberation, instead of what I have heard, that when a person is doing bad thing, a bad act, and so on, moves on to bad places. So how come he get liberation instead?
Well, we discussed this thing. Don't you remember? We talked about this a couple of days ago. You were here, you were listening, you forgot, huh? All right, we talked about this in detail. He could not get bhakti because of his offenses to the Pandavas. But he had this compassionate brother who, I mean, even demons can get liberation. Liberation is not such a great thing. When Krishna kills the demons, they all get liberation. So liberation is not, and if you're engaged in devotional service, it says you're automatically liberated. So what is this liberation is such a great thing? But he detached himself from all of his material arrangements, and he performed austerities. He did the yoga process. And by the power of his yoga, and he did, he was able to do meditation and pranayama, and then he successfully burnt up his body in the fire of yoga, and then he achieved, I guess he achieves, it says liberation, doesn't say what kind of liberation he got. Obviously, it might be Sahuja Mukti, which means that he's liberation into the impersonal. But that's temporary. And after some time, when the effects of liberation wears off, one falls down again into the material realm to again take up material activities. So liberation devotees, what's his name? There's a very great sage. Yeah, Prabodhananda Saraswati calls liberation hell. He calls it hell. Who wants liberation? Liberation, you're already, if you're chanting, if you're engaged in devotional service, you're already liberated. The devotional service is on the liberated platform. But we want bhakti, not mukti.
Thanks, Kalik Mataji. Yes, Raj Prabhu, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Sri Prabhupada. Maharaj, can greed exist in subtle forms that we may not recognize?
Oh, yeah. It does. Greedy for attention. That's subtle. You want attention and you're greedy for it. That's one form of subtle greed. There's others. I think that's the most prominent one out of all of these subtle forms. If I don't get attention, I don't feel happy. And when I get attention, I just want more and more of it. So that's there. Just like some people, they get married, so just so they can get somebody to give them attention.
Thanks.
Or we dress in a certain way to attract attention. It's like women, they like to dress scantily, so they know that men like to look at their bodies, so they do that, so just to get attention, that's it.
Thank you. Thanks, Raj Prabhu. Supriya Mataji, you have a question? You're on mute, Mataji. Yeah.
Please accept my humble obeisances, Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj, the one question I had is Kunti Maharani, she had a boon to get a good husband. In Bhagavatam, it's given that she got Dhritarashtra as her husband, but in what sense he was good? That is first question. Okay. Second is when Dhritarashtra's 100 sons were killed, it was because of his past life sins. But what Gandhari did that she had to go through that trouble.
Yeah, well, Dhritarashtra was the son of Vyasadeva, you know that. He was born as one of the sons of Vyasadeva. Dura, Dhritarashtra, and Pandu, three brothers they all came from Vyasadeva, who was the author of the Vedas. So he came from a good lineage. Family.
Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
And how about when his 100 sons were killed, what was Gandhari's fate in that? Why she had to go through that trouble and deal with that pain?
It's hard to say why she had to go through it. There is obviously something. There's also another element that she's glorified for what she went through. And she's known as probably one of the most, Prabhupada writes in this same, you'll come across it in this same chapter. She is actually one of the most chaste women in the history of women. And so she's glorified in that one.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a whole, you'll come across that verse with Gandhari and her qualities.
Mhm.
Why she had to go through that? I don't, it didn't. Ultimately, she achieved liberation also, along with her husband.
And also, Maharaj, now you said that when we are on the liberated platform, when we are in the devotional service, that itself means we are on the liberated platform.
Yeah.
But we don't want a mukti, we want a bhakti. Now, isn't devotional service same as bhakti?
Let's say that. What's the question again?
So you said that when we are
Yeah,
doing
I
devotional
didn't.
service.
I heard all that. I didn't hear the last sentence. I missed. What did you say?
Okay, so isn't doing devotional service itself same as bhakti?
Yeah, bhakti is devotional service. It's the same thing. It's just a different word. Devotional service, bhakti is the same.
Are you saying that once the person is liberated, he may or may not do devotional service and may not get a bhakti?
Not necessarily. If you're engaged in bhakti yoga, devotional service, you're already engaged in you're already on the liberated platform. Govardhana Thakur says, Bhukti and Mukti are standing at my door with folded hands saying, how can I serve you? Is material profit and Mukti is liberation. It comes automatically from service. You don't have to try.
Mhm. Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah. So we're not interested in, we're only interested in devotional service because that is the nature of the soul's existence, to engage in devotional service. And everything else that is auspicious automatically follows devotional service. Just as the bridegroom, just like the bridesmaids follow the bride during the marriage.
Mhm.
Thank you. Thanks, Maharaj. And thanks,
Thank you,
Premadaji.
Maharaj.
Ekta Mataji, you have a question?
Hi, Krishna Maharaj. Please set my home obeisances. Oglai Srila Prabhupada. My question is a follow-up to your answer to Raj Prabhu's question on subtle forms of greed. So you mentioned like one example is greed for attention. So I just wondered if you could share a bit more on dealing with these subtle forms of greed, such as greed for attention.
Give attention to Krishna, and then you won't be greedy for attention. And Prabhupada said that also. That if you want to dress yourself nicely, dress the deity nicely, and then automatically you lose that element of wanting to dress yourself nicely. You'll find satisfaction in giving Krishna nice dresses. So give Krishna all attention, and then you won't want any attention. And if anybody gives you attention, you just refer that person to Krishna because you want him to get all the attention. And Krishna, because of his position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we have to give him attention. Otherwise, if we don't, we're at a loss. That's why he says, worship me. We don't say that about ourselves, we don't say others worship me. We say worship Krishna. And Krishna says, worship me also. Now, Krishna is the one who deserves all attention, because that is for our benefit, that we give him attention. And then you lose your desire for attention. And if you get it, you don't think it's very important. In fact, there are devotees who don't like attention, and they run away when they get attention. Of course, other devotees just take that attention and offer it to Krishna. But Krishna likes to give attention to his devotee, and so the devotee will get attention anyway, even if you don't want it. It's true. It's a fact. In devotional service, when you actually don't want something material, you get it anyway. But when you want it, you may get it or you may not get it. Because if you don't want it and you get it, that means you'll use it in the right way. And when you want it, that means it's an element of your own personal interest. And Krishna may not give it to you because he may feel it's not good for you to receive that.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks, Maharaj. I hope that answers Ekta Mataji. Yeah, thank you. Silpesh Prabhu, yes, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Srila Prabhupada.
Before you start, I should say one more thing on that, which is might be a little explosive, but especially for the ladies. All the ladies put on their seatbelts for this one. But if you're above the bodily concept of life, it won't bother you. But women in the material world, they live simply to get attention. That's their main thing. The worst thing if you chastise a woman or you praise her, it's okay. At least you're giving her attention. And that's what counts. But if you don't give her any attention, whoa, it's like the worst thing in the world. That's the women, that's the Srimati is falling off her chair laughing here. As we know that it's just a womanly quality, because it says that in the Shastras, a man's body is designed for self-realization, and a woman's body is designed to distract a man from self-realization.
We are that bad, Guru Maharaj.
Yeah, that's in the Shastra. That's in the material world. But if you think you're a woman, that's a problem. But if you think I'm a spirit soul with a woman's body, then you're more acting on the platform of spirit soul instead of all of the feminine characteristics that make up the material activities. But that's one of the main qualities of material life, is that people want attention, even men. But for women, it's prominent. That's why they dress in a certain way, they speak in a certain way. It's all to get attention. But that's material. But we have to, if we have that desire, we have to strengthen our Krishna consciousness and give all the attention to Krishna. It's a reality. Nobody can deny it. I'm not saying something that is, from my own ego. I'm saying something that is actually a reality. You can see it every day in life.
Thank you. Thanks, Maharaj. Thanks for that highlight.
The antidote is give Krishna the attention. Give attention to others and take the attention, the desire for attention off yourself and onto others. But you'll get attention anyway. Just the way life is. But if it comes, fine. If it doesn't come, no loss.
Thank you. Thanks, Maharaj. Shilpesh Prabhu, you have a question?
Maharaj, I wanted to ask, as a grihasta, if maybe somebody has paid off their mortgage and they have some savings and so forth, is it wise or is it folly to say, I'm just going to stop acting in the material world and depend on Krishna and just focus on my Krishna consciousness?
Well, you have to take care of your material responsibilities. And you have to work in such a way as to do that. But you should know it's just a necessity that is according to a certain time period in your life. Ultimately, we have to get through. We have to downplay it. Yeah, not downplay, but downsize our material responsibilities more and more as we get older. We take up more activity and devotion and service. But we can't neglect our material responsibilities in the name of, that I'm a devotee. But some material responsibilities you can somehow get around, not have to worry about. That's selective and that is based on your particular situation. Like it says, Nirnam Katinam, what is it? Nayam Deho Vajan Yalokam Kasman Kama. No, that's not the verse. Devarshi Putatman Nirnam Katinam Kinkanarayan Jam. Turn to that verse. So, 11th canto, 2nd chapter, verse number. I get the verse number in the middle.
Second canto, 10th chapter.
It's let's see. It's 11th canto.
11th canto, sorry.
5th chapter, verse 41, 11:5:41. This is a very important verse. Everyone should learn this. 11:5:41. Yeah. Vivarshi Putapmanir Patinana Kinkanarayan Turucharajam Sarvatmaryam Sharadam Saranyam Gato Mukundam Yakartam. O King, one who has given up all material duties and has taken full shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, who offers shelter to all, is not indebted to the demigods, great sages, ordinary living beings, relatives, friends, mankind, or even forefathers who have passed away. Since all such classes of living entities are parts and parcel of the Supreme Lord, one who is surrendered to the Lord's service has no need to serve such persons. And then it goes on to explain that we have so many duties when we are born, and we accept more duties also in our, and we have to pay back these debts. But if we surrender fully to the Lord in devotional service, then all of these debts are automatically paid by the power of one's devotional service. He says here, we receive mundane education, culture, tradition, protection, and thus we owe a great debt to society. Of course, our debt to society is not simply to the present order, but to all our forefathers, ancestors, moral codes, customs, descendants, forefathers, all of this. But then it goes on to say that if you take shelter of Krishna in devotional service, all of your material responsibilities are automatically taken care of. Just like the example of pouring water on the tree, on the root of the tree nourishes all the branches. So the root, Krishna is called Mula, he is the root. Giving food to the stomach means all the bodily parts get nourished. So in the same way, when we serve the Lord in devotional service, and all of our responsibilities, as is mentioned, through all of the living entities in different categories in society are automatically fulfilled.
Maharaj, when he says take shelter, does that mean like you have to take initiation, or is it just as a devotee do devotional service you have taken shelter?
Taking shelter means to take shelter of the process of the spiritual master, and the process, and he gives you shelter of devotional service. So in this verse, really, it requires some discussion, but really, you can just, if you just simply are, half in devotional service and half out, then you may still have responsibilities in the material sense. Only when you're fully engaged in devotional service, then all of these debts are automatically. Even if you're not a pure devotee, at least if you're engaged in devotional service fully, still, there's no more debts to be collected.
Thanks, Shripesh Prabhu. Sridevi Mataji, do you still have a question?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, Guru Maharaj, you said just now, a man's body is meant for self-realization and a woman's body is meant to distract man from self-realization. May I know where is that quote from, Guru Maharaj?
In the Bhagavatam. But if you really want to know the whole scenario of the verses that you go to the third, right, okay. Go to the third canto, 31st chapter, verse number 31. 3:31, 31. Okay. Okay. Keep going down the list. These are the verses. Let's see here. So you go to, if you can just put the verses in order. Here, you leave them here. We can leave them in the translations here. Okay. And this whole series of verses, and in the purports, it's all about attraction. Yeah, amongst all kinds of living entities begotten, but namely men, demigod, and Narayan is immune to the attraction of Maya in the form of a woman. Just try to understand the mighty strength of my Maya in the shape of a woman, who by the mere movements of her eyebrows can keep even the greatest conquerors of the world under the grip. For one who aspires to reach culmination and has realized it, and service unto me should never associate with attractive women, for such a woman is declared in the scriptures to be the gateway to hell for the advancing devotee. The woman created by the Lord is the representation of Maya, and one who associates with such Maya by accepting service must certainly know that this is the way to death, just like a blind well covered by grass. A living entity who, as a result of attachment to a woman in his previous life, has been endowed with the form of a woman, foolishly looks upon Maya in the form of a man, her husband, as the bestower of wealth. Yeah. So all of these verses from 31 to 41 talk about the attraction of woman in the form of Maya. Attractions of Maya in the form of a woman. You want to read, you want to get into it more, just read the purports.
Even this verse 42, a woman therefore should consider her husband, her children, her progeny, her home. Satyabhama, can you go back? 42, to be the arrangement, 42, to be the arrangement of the external energy of the Lord for her death, just as the sweet singing of the hunter is death for the deer. So it describes how the same thing for a woman is also just like what is for a blind well covered with grass. So for both genders, the other gender can be a source of Maya. It's not just that woman only is a source of Maya for men. What about men being source of Maya for women?
Yeah, it's true, but woman is seen in that way, as it mentions here. Go back. The woman created by the Lord is the representation of Maya. Okay? He's the persona. Maya is represented in the attraction to women.
But it also says in the next verse, Guru Maharaj, the woman looks foolishly upon Maya in the form of a man, her husband.
Yeah.
So it is for both. Why just condemn women?
Yeah. Well, we're not condemning women. We're just quoting the Shastras.
Okay. All right. Accepted.
Okay. Well, the word woman in Shastra also has two meanings. In another section, it says the word woman for when they use the word woman in Shastra, the word woman means for a man, a woman, and for a woman, it means man. But the woman's voice, her walking, her singing, her facial gestures are all designed in such a way as to attract a man. Men don't go around flashing their eyebrows and waddling just to attract women, you know. It's just...
Yeah, but they do it in different ways. They have funny hairstyles and they have beards and mustaches and they flash their biceps and whatnot.
That's there just to be different. That's all it is. You just want to be different. Krishna is attracted to Radharani. Even he's attracted to the transcendental form of the opposite sex, but it's pure love. It's not imbued with this lusty desires. This is the Adiras. But that statement is there if you want to read it into the purports. What I
That's
say,
right. I'm going to go back and read the purports carefully because I want to really understand this, because I believe that any soul can be tempted in whatever body they are by Maya. It's not
Yeah.
just that only women are sources of temptation, even men are sources of temptation for a woman.
yeah, but women walk around attempting the men all the time. That's all they do. That's their main business.
Not all women, Guru Maharaj.
Yes, they do. And if they don't get that attention or that attraction, they're miserable. That's material life. And you think you're a woman, that's the big problem. That's your problem.
I think
Look at all of the advertising. It's all displayed, women in different ways, One devotee went to go buy some glue to put the tiles on the floor, and he's in the shop there trying to buy it, and he sees 19 different cans of the same different glues by different brands. And then he goes to the shopkeeper and says, I want some glue, but I can see, I want to know which one is the best one. And the shopkeeper said, basically all of the glues are the same, but everyone buys this can, and it's a half-naked girl on the can. This is the one that sells the most, So yeah, this is what goes on in the world. Women are used as sex objects or sense objects for attracting, the opposite sex, and for getting people to spend money on buying things that they think. The girl sits on top of a beautiful car and they advertise the car, and you think you're going to get the girl and the car when you buy the car. The fact, this is subliminal way of using the female form to attract people and to get people to do things like that.
But surely, once we come to devotional service and understand we are not this body, we are trying to overcome these tendencies and not do all this stuff that materialistic men and women do, isn't it, Guru Maharaj?
I hope so.
Okay.
Even in the animal species, it works in that way too. The donkeys, the two donkeys are there, the male donkey and the female donkey. We saw this. We had donkeys across the street from Mandivandara. Now the male donkey, he's bopping along and he sees his feminine counterpart and he's getting attracted. And so he gets close to her and she turns around, she kicks him in the face. Boom. He's a little shaken up and he waits a little while and he comes back again. And she gives him the second shot. Boom. And then he's not deterred by that, although he's a little, battle wounded. And he comes back again, and then she says, all right. It's like that. The female spiders, they have mate with their male, and then the female eats the male. He chews them up, Yeah. Not all spiders. So this male-female thing is in all species of life. It's even in the spiritual world. But in the spiritual world, it's pure. In the material world, it's based on some desire for sense gratification.
Thank you, Maharaj. I just have a question that we are 20 minutes past an hour, and we also want to, Srimati Mataji also want to show the GV retreat video. Is it okay to move?
We did. He's trying for attention now. So, okay, Namrata,
Yep.
change the subject.
I'm really sorry. I have a related question. Hare Krishna, my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. So my question is related to chastity. So chastity of a woman is considered to be a good quality. But so does that contribute only on the material platform, or chastity of a woman is considered to be a good quality?
Yeah,
So yeah, for a woman. So is it does that contribute only on the material platform, or it contributes on the spiritual platform as well? Because then we are just considered as a spirit soul.
well, on the spiritual platform, there's no unchastity. There's no one that's not chaste. If you're on the spiritual platform, you're acting on the spiritual level, and there's no question about, not chaste. That's different. When you're actually on the spiritual platform, then there isn't none of these inebrities or bad qualities exist. There's no question. That quality automatically is there. But in the spiritual world, you'll see that, the gopis, they have husbands, but they leave their husbands to go with Krishna. And sometimes they're seen by their relatives and friends as being unchaste. But that is not unchaste. That's not really unchaste, because when Krishna is the only object of love for all living entities, whether they're male or female body. So in order to enhance Krishna's pastimes, the gopis appear to be married. And then the lawless love, or we call it parakiya ras, is considered to be more satisfying than the swakiya ras, or marriage. But that's in the spiritual realm. In the material realm, it's the opposite. If you're unchaste, then you're polluted. If you're chaste, if you follow your husband and you live according to the marriageable principles, then you're considered to be chaste, at least in that sense. And on the spiritual platform, unchastity is not unchastity. It's actually a way to actually give pleasure to Krishna. But there's no material body there. The bodies are spiritual. And therefore you can't compare material and spiritual and expect to understand that it's the same. It looks the same, but the essence is completely different. One is lust and one is love. One is cheap and one is rare. One is what we say, goes on everywhere, and then the other one is just very rarely is achieved by those in the spiritual world. So we can't make a comparison, because a comparison will fall short of the essence. So what looks like unchastity in the spiritual world is the highest form of chastity. And what looks like chastity in this material world may be considered chastity from a material point of view, but unchaste from another point of view. That if you stay chaste to your partner in marriage, but you have no relationship with Krishna, then you're unchaste.
Thank you, Maharaj. I think chastity in itself is a big topic, but just a little small follow-up. So, when we think of chastity,
Material point of view, it is a very lofty quality. Material.
yes. So even chastity, is it just an austerity, or can we categorize this in the three modes as well? Chastity.
Yeah, it can be considered an austerity because it gets you off the bodily platform. Anything that gets you off the bodily platform onto the spiritual platform is considered to be a good quality. It's supportive. But the prostitutes, they had a relationship with Krishna also, and they were devotees of Krishna. Yet they had a profession as prostitutes, but they were devotees of Krishna. So they served Krishna, just like Kuja, the whole story of Kuja in the 10th canto. She was attracted to Krishna in a lusty way. And Krishna, he gave her as much attention that he needed, that she wanted, but at the same time, he said, I will satisfy your desires in due course of time. It's not mentioned in the Bhagavatam, but it's mentioned in the other Puranas that Krishna came to her house at one point to satisfy her desires. But she fell so in love with Krishna, she gave up all of her lusty desires and just served Krishna very nicely. So he purified her from those lusty desires simply by his interaction with her.
Yes, so imagine in the first canto, even when Krishna returns to Dwarka, we have seen that the prostitutes of Dwarka, they also, comes up with to welcome Krishna. They comes up with a lot of offerings. So,
Yeah, but in the material world, we have to give credit to women who follow the principles of chastity because it's very difficult to perform to do that in this material world. But those who do it are considered, a woman is considered worshipable. Prabhupada talks about when he was a young man, he was standing on the outside of the door of a house. And he was talking to his friend, and they were talking. And the lady, the maidservant lady, she was coming to clean the house. And then she stopped when she saw two men standing by the door. And she just waited. And then Prabhupada said, we noted she was very shy and didn't try to walk past us. So immediately we stepped aside so she could go in. In other words, because of her shyness and chastity, she gained respect immediately. So a woman becomes respectable because of her chastity. That was Prabhupada's example he uses. How it's natural to show respect to a lady who acts in that way. They're respectable. That respect comes automatically. You don't even have to think about it. When a woman is like that, she commands respect. She doesn't demand it. Simply by her behavior, she attracts respect. And she doesn't want respect, but at the same time, the qualities she exhibited automatically brings about respect. When women try to act like men, they lose respect.
thank you, Maharaj. That was a nice clarification from you. But I request, I think we should have a topic of chastity. We should have some lectures over it to get clarity, more clarity.
Okay. And we can put that on we have a list of topics that we need to do aside from the regular Bhagavatam classes. So we'll add that to the list.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Thanks, Namrata Mataji. Guru Maharaj, do we have time for one more question from Shridevi Mataji?
No, she's out of the picture. She used up all her time.
Guru Maharaj, this is not on this hot topic that we are discussing. It's a very simple question, which Sukhavaha Mataji asked. What's the difference between austerity and penance? Or they're the same?
I would think austerity is what is mentioned in the scriptures as being bona fide. Like in the 17th chapter, there is a list of austerities of the body, austerities of the mind, austerities of speech. Penance, I think, is something you may also take on as an extra feature of giving up certain things or accepting some difficulty. I think the definitions are practically the same, but I guess if you do a little research, you might find that they're just like envy and jealousy. They're the same, but they're also slightly different in meaning also.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Guru Maharaj.
I do have to move on because there are some things that are waiting to be done. So yeah.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
And
Sorry to interrupt. Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. My humble obeisances to you. Guru Maharaj, Dimple Mataji requested me to show the video of the GEV retreat and a little bit, if you can comment on that and encourage devotees to join the retreat or register for the retreat.
well, I think the video itself is enough. I don't really have to say anything.
Okay, Guru Maharaj. So should I share it quickly for 2-3
Yeah.
minutes?
Yeah, before you start, I do want to mention one small thing. I'll be here tomorrow for class, but Sunday I'm not able to be.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. Yeah, it's Rath Yatra in London. Yeah, I know.
So that day will be.
Sure, Guru Maharaj. Yeah.
Find someone. Yeah, the video is only 2 minutes and 55 seconds long,
Yes, ma'am.
but I don't have the time. So somebody's here waiting for me, so I
Sure.
can't keep them waiting any longer.
Yes, ma'am.
So go ahead and show it, and I'll leave the Sangha here.
Sure, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Jai. Everyone stay for this video. You'll find it very, very enlightening about Govardhanical village. It's quite good. And we're encouraging devotees who haven't and can come to please come to that retreat. We still have spaces available for devotees. And the video will help you to decide.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna. My humble obeisances to you.
Maharaj.
Hey Gopinath, hey Gopinath, hey Gopinath. nahi mora guno amara barasha tumi tomara charane loinu sharana tomara kinkor ami hey gopinath hey gopinath hey gopinath hey gopinath ke mone shodhibe more na jani bhakati karme jada mati podechi sangsara ghore shakali tomara maya nahi mama bala jnana sunirmala swadhina nahe kaya hey gopinath hey gopinath hey gopinath hey gopinath.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. The registration deadline is August 4th. And the link I shared in the WhatsApp groups. If you are not there in the WhatsApp group, please let me know in the chat. Otherwise, you all can have the access to the registration link. So the deadline is August 4th. And as Guru Maharaj requested, please register if you can come to the GEV retreat. Thank you all so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thanks for joining the call. Very cool.
Thank